Owen Meeds can nuke the golf ball, and today we're going to look at his swing and analyze how he does this. Needless to say, this is going to be a fun one as he can routinely achieve ball speeds well over 210 miles an hour. If you find enjoyment or learn something from this video, please assist us in your support by leaving a comment, like, share, or even subscribe as we donate profits from this channel to the Hillerhood Foundation in South Africa for low-income children. But enough of that red herring, let's take a look at the great Owen Meeds. Ladies and gentlemen of the Latin Golf Academy, welcome back, and we have Owen Meeds on the screen. Now, this is a recommendation from someone in the comments section, and I hope you're a subscriber. If not, go ahead and subscribe. I appreciate it. And he was asking to see Owen Meeds, and I never heard of this man before, and I couldn't really find anything on his social media other than a few videos, so these are the best two that I found to show you how he hits this so far. So let's get right down to it. We're going to look at a couple things that happen, and it has to do with some physics that he uses, most notably centripetal acceleration, angular momentum, and rotational inertia. And we'll describe how we accomplish that, and it's not for the weak of heart. So don't try this at home because you might end up in a wheelchair or on the way to the hospital, and I don't want anything to do with that. So let's look at the setup so we can see how much tilt he has and how much his hand is ahead of that golf ball in relation to his tilting. Now what that is going to do is it's going to force him to fall back and rotate a lot like we talked about a couple of days ago with Minwoo, but he does this on an exaggerated motion. Now we know he's going to do that by, if we take that right shoulder tilt line and extend it out, we're going to look at where that golf ball position is perpendicular to that. Now we can see that's basically where his golf ball is set up in relation to his spine tilt. It's not connected to his body, and he's doing this on purpose, but you'll see how he falls back to try and get closer to that X. So what we'll do is we'll leave all that information on the screen and come back to it later. Right side of the screen, we can see that spine angle and the lower brace line. Usually that's at 90 degrees, and that's what we've been seeing a lot in common with the great players of this game and great ball strikers. So that's one thing that you can check on at home to see if you do have 90 degrees. If not, you might have to do some manipulation with your arms and body to accommodate that. We can see the center of the feet straight up in the air. They get pretty close to that intersecting line. All in all, it's a pretty solid setup, and we can see his arm hang is parallel to his center point. So everything is looking good to go. Now things will change dramatically for him, and what we do is we leave that center line as well up there to show you how much things will change. So now let's take this club back. We're going to go on the left side of the screen and take that club back to about parallel, which is about here. So we can see a nice wide arc. He's getting the weight over to the right side, a slight little sliding over that right brace line, straight arms, which means he's truly turning around his spine. We can draw that triangle like we always do in every evaluation we see with these top end players, and it is truly connected to the center of that triangle. Right side of the screen, we're going to take that in that same position, and we can see a little bit of arm lifting up to that secondary plane line sooner. So he is one that is not trying to tilt and stay in his posture, because for him, he needs rotation. And if you start to get that left shoulder down to hold your tilt, you lock your body from turning. And if you don't believe me, give it a try. Stand up, put your left shoulder down to your right knee and see how much you can turn, and now do the opposite. Get your left shoulder up to the sky and see how much you can turn. Believe me, you can turn a lot easier with that second motion. So he is going to start to stand up slightly because of that motion and lose some tilt, but this is by design because he's trying to turn as much as he possibly can. So let's move back on the left side of the screen to the top of the swing. Now you might think, hey, that's a pretty good top position there, because if you draw a straight line, we can see that's half the circle is taken care of, but this is not an ordinary person that can hit the ball like ordinary people. Look how far he takes that club back. So not only does his arms get much higher, but look at that club. It almost touches his back. Right side of the screen, let's take a look at that same position and see the similarities between the arms. So we see there's not much manipulation in terms of the path of the hands. His hands get to that secondary plane now pretty well, slightly higher just because he's coming out of his posture a little bit, and he's starting to stand up a little bit just for momentarily because he goes directly down and away from the ball. But look at that arm. That arm is a nice steady position. It's still fairly close to his neutral position. Gets that top of the swing, and this is where things change from him to us. And we are the mere mortals when we look at this motion. So from this point of view, you see he's got that triangle. He's got that triangle straight down on the ground. He's going to carry that triangle for as long as he can straight down into, that's a horrible triangle, but he's going to carry that triangle straight down. So we can see pulls it initially down, Look how much his whole upper body is going down. What he's basically doing is squatting down. As an athlete, if you want to jump as high as you can, you need to go down first and jump up. A lot of these long drive men and women out there, you will see a lot of this squatting action, and that's going to really help push up and into that golf ball. Now let's revisit this top of the swing. We can see the shoulder turn versus the arms. So you see that club now goes past that tee. So this is definitely getting the arms and wrists engaged more, and you can see that bowing of the club shaft already. And in relation to his triangle, we can see that that right hand is connected on the right shoulder, which now involves a little bit more timing to get those hands back out in front of the chest. But for a long drive hitter, you don't really need much timing in terms of consistency, because they get 3 or 4 shots every round. They just got to hit one in the middle. So this is something that he can get away with. So this first move down, we're going to see the head dipping down, which in essence is basically his knees bending down, so he can store up some weighting in his foot to push back up into it. But the most important thing too is look at this gap between the club shaft and his body. It never really, even though it gets really close, you can see this, the pivot point, you can see the pivot point is right about here. That center of the shaft kind of stays steady while he's rotating back around, which is really impressive. Most of the time when we do this motion, our hands and arms are already trying to fling that club back out in front of our body. So the fact that he's able to hold on to this is that angular momentum that we're talking about in the beginning part of this video. Once he turns into it, you can see a lot of this is turned with the lower body. Upper body is turning with that lower body. There's not much premature firing of the hips like we see some other long drive hitters, but this move here, so watch his head's going to tip back, and it's falling back to this X. As long as your body will fall back to where the ball is connected to your shoulder tilt at address, that is the goal, and that allows him to stay in that posture that he had at the start of the swing. Now as he keeps on striking, you can see his body still falls back because it's stuck on that right side. With that 4 press he had, it increased his tilting at the start of his swing, and the more tilt you have, the further that golf ball is disconnected from your body. So you have to be in this sort of position past impact to stay somewhat connected in this region. And the amount of tilting he has, look at that right shoulder, it's all the way down. There's that full release, the right hand's over the left, but look at that tilting. But the most important part, if we draw those two, it is still truly connected to his spine. So this is a phenomenal position to be in, but he has to give way to make this motion. So I don't know if you noticed this, but that left foot slipped from this region. That's a horrible foot, but that's supposed to be a footprint. It slipped from that region back, and it continues to slip back. So we're going to go to the right side of the screen and see why this needs to occur, and if he doesn't do it, he is going to hurt himself. Okay, right side of the screen, what we also put down in that lower plane line is where his hands were at address. So we're going to see if they return there. But what you'll notice, if we back up and we put his arm line, we can see how it is down. Now this is another thing that he's going to try and use is centripetal acceleration. So as he comes on through impact, top of the swing, his first move is not only to go down, but he is going down and away from the golf ball. So he actually gets some space in between that back brace line. You can see some of his butt just creep out over there. Now as he comes on through with that rotation, he still goes further left. So look how much he has gained on that left brace line, and his body is completely away from his spine angle that he began with. Now you look at his hand position, it is further away from his body. So in essence, he is widening his swing arc. When things get wider, they can move faster miles per hour, even though it's the same RPM. So the wider the arc can become, the faster your hand speed can be, and it turns that into your golf club. And the faster your club head speed can be, the more you can hit it on the center of the face, the faster your ball speed becomes. So this is how he gains extra mileage per hour. Pair that with the down and upward motion of his legs. Now he's really driving all that force that he stole from the ground and created from the ground with his motions. Now right as he gets down to impact, what we can see here is watch his legs. 1, 2, 3. Look how straight they became. So remember what I said about jumping back up into the target? This is what all athletes do. To jump higher, they have to go down lower. So if he can go down even lower, he can probably hit the ball a little bit further, but then it becomes a point of actually injuring yourself. Look at that club shaft. Now if we extend that club shaft, it's on his lower brace line, and it goes right through that center point. So his club shaft is now connected to his center where all those lines intersect. There's a little X I'm going to draw right here. All those lines intersect right when that club shaft is going through. So that's where everything meets. The upper body's working its way down, the lower body's working its way up. Everything meets in that center point, and the club shaft is in line with that center point. And he continues that motion. Look at that left foot coming off the turf, and he faces the target. So when he finishes, it's a pretty good finish, but he is completely in a different position. He has moved over a couple of feet to the left side. That's the only way he can clear the room because of that extreme excessive tilting at the start of his swing on the left side. So I hope you can see why he needs to do this and how he hits the golf ball so far. He needs centripetal acceleration by pulling away from the golf ball, creating that speed for his hands and his club head. He needs angular momentum, and he accomplishes this with that super long backswing, holding that angle as he rotates through. And lastly, the rotational inertia of his body helps him with that extreme motion left. So I hope that helps you. If you do like this, hit that like and subscribe. Other than that, I will see you next time, and thank you again for the suggestion. Fairways and greens.